Hello, my name is Mordred Viking, and I'd like to welcome you to this episode of Imperator Rome. We are, of course, playing as the Dwarves, better known as the Langobards. In the previous episode, we finally made it over to our new Carpathian homeland and have started to resettle the region. Our capital is here in Imeprator, where we have found gold. We've also started to expand outwards a little bit to secure a couple of other resources, including grain. We do need to assign a governor here, so let's go ahead and do that. We can see the governor's stats. I don't actually know what those stats do. We'll assign a governor and then we'll take another look. The other thing we should probably spend a little more time looking at are the actual stats of these people. So he's not a very good general. He's decent at oratory and he's a terrible priest. I think he's going to be an excellent governor, actually. He's also pretty loyal, so that's going to help. The other stats are prominent. Prominence represents the fame of a character. Jobs and titles help bring characters to public attention. Prominent characters are likely to get married and have children. So if we want to promote certain people and certain traits and things like that, then we want to increase their prominence. Popularity. He's selfish, which is good because that will reduce his popularity, but he is also charismatic. Popularity is a measure of how people view a character. In republics, high popularity characters are more likely to be elected a leader of a republic. However, even monarchies cannot ignore popular characters. We're more similar to a monarchy than we are to a republic because there are no elections, except I think for the clan leader. I think that is an election. So I don't think we need to worry about that too much. We actually have a different mechanic. We'll go through that in just a moment. And then loyalty. Loyalty is a measure of a character's loyalty to the state. Disloyal characters are more likely to cause problems to a ruler than loyal ones. However, even the most loyal of characters has their limit, so almost always you want the most loyal people. And then corruption. Corruption is a measurement of the willingness of a character to engage in underhanded practices. Greed, bribery, and the bending of rules come hand in hand with a high corruption. Corruption also increases the amount of money you have to pay a character. So their wages will go up if they're very corrupt. If they have high wages, they're more likely to be able to afford personal armies and that type of thing. So it is something to, keep an eye on. So, yeah, we have a governor. Excellent. The other thing that we can do is choose what our regional province policy is going to be. So we have the acquisition of wealth, which increases local tax, increases commerce income, but also increases the governor's wages. So he basically makes loads of money for him and everyone else. Religious conversion will increase the local unrest of the province, but also a 10% chance of converting one populace to the Tustic. Cultural assimilation, same thing, but it converts them to Swabian. Bleed them dry increases unrest, but rapidly or radically increases local tax and commerce income, but also reduces local population growth. Borderlands increases manpower by 25% and also the local fort defense. We don't have any forts established as yet. It's a building. We'll talk about that in a minute as well. Encourage trade is an additional local import route and also commerce income. If we do this and just take a look at what's available, we really need to start making some diplomatic overtures to people so that we have more people we can actually trade with. We'll do that in a minute. So I don't think that encourage trade is going to be a particularly good one right now, but in the capital, eventually, we almost certainly will want that. Social mobility, a 4.1% chance. One pop in every applicable province city will be promoted or demoted, aiming and reaching an even split between citizens, freemen, and slaves. This will not convert tribesmen. So basically has no impact on us whatsoever. Local autonomy reduces population output, but increases happiness really quite significantly for all of the different people. That's really good for recently conquered territories. And then civilization effort will increase the civilization level. But again, higher civilization means more unhappy townsmen, tribesmen, so we don't actually want to do that. I think we probably want acquisition of wealth or possibly cultural assimilation. And considering 4 of our 5 populace are not Swabian, yeah, we want assimilation. This will cost us, I think it's oratory to convert. Does it actually say here? Yes, it will cost 67 oratory, and we gain tyranny as well, because we're basically telling this guy what to do rather than just letting him do his own thing. We're currently on autonomy. No, we don't want autonomy. We want cultural assimilation. Saves us having to actually pay for promotions. The other thing we could start trying to do is move more of the population out of Abadura and then get some more into Lugia so that we can get some more of the territories up here. Now, one of the great things about Vistulia is the fact it has 2 grain provinces. That means there's always going to be a surplus of at least 1. In fact, there's tons of grains. 4 grain in the province next to that. So one of the real reasons, I must admit, that I chose this area, sure, the flavour of having Ibadura and the gold and all that stuff is really cool, but there's also lots of grain, which means that we can have really good population levels. So there's a couple of different things which go into the thinking about where you want to move to as a migratory horde. The next thing that we do need to consider really quite strongly is who to make friends with. So if we click on, for example, Bohemia, which I hope is going to become as famous as Boy. It's basically the home of the boys. Bohemia, also known as Bohemia. Is really big. They're kind of on the outskirts. They have the potential to grow even further through colonies. And just generally looks really cool. So let's see if we can do any diplomatic agreements with you. Now, we are going to have trouble with these guys because they're not our culture, they're not our... Actually, are they our religion? Where's religion? Not seeing religion. Different culture group, different culture group. So these guys were positive towards us because they were culturally very similar to us. These guys not so much. So maybe actually we want to reach out to Bastania, who is our culture. No, they're not. Different culture, same religion. So our cultures really are just these guys, and then these guys are something a little bit different. I kind of want to try and see if we can attract Bastania. Bastania would actually agree to an alliance. I think that's going to be a great place to start. With the same religion, we're now friendly. Relations are going to increase with you. Fantastic. Bohemia doesn't want an alliance because we are different religion, we are different opinion. We could save up and spend some oratory power to try and improve relations with them. What about these guys? Any chance? No. And then the other thing, of course, is see if we can establish some defensive leagues. Now, because we're further away, they don't want to establish defensive leagues. So the downside to having migrated away and being more isolated is we are more isolated. So making friends is going to be a lot more difficult than it was previously. I think it's going to be a great idea to try and get some more oratory power and then improve relations with Bohemia. And that way we're going to have an alliance with Bastania and Bohemia, and I would say, like, between the three of us we have a pretty good triumvirate. So I'm pretty happy with that idea in principle. We are making a tiny amount of money. We do actually have to pay army maintenance at the moment for the retinues. I thought they paid for that themselves. Cheeky. Might be because they have no money of their own, so we have to pay it. Yes. That seems entirely like what's going on here. Okay, so when we changed the government policy up here, we gained tyranny. What does tyranny do? Well, there is a difference between tyranny and aggressive expansion. Aggressive expansion is basically how the foreign states are looking at you, and then tyranny is how your own people look at you. So having high tyranny is generally a bad thing because it will decrease your primary culture's happiness, so the Swabian happiness will be reduced. No impact on other cultures, however. It's just your own culture. It will also decrease the loyalty of your generals, admirals, and governors. It will, however, give you additional slave output. So if you have a lot of slaves, it might actually be a good idea to drive up tyranny. It will reduce your imprisonment cost and your execution cost. So you can have a very tyrannical, very oppressive state. As long as you have ways of keeping your own people happy, probably by oppressing them, then it can be pretty profitable. So it's swings and roundabouts. Like you can choose if you want to be a tyrant or if you want to be benevolent. Then aggressive expansion doesn't actually show any of the statistics, but it will reduce like the diplomatic opinion of other nations around you. Right, let's unpause this because now we have a bit of waiting to do as we try to grow. Did we decide we could move down here? No, because we have to wait until we can actually go. What about moving population? I think we can probably move a tribesman north. So we need to get another 4 up there. Because I would like to get to the other grain province if we can. Where was it? there. So we can go either via livestock, which is great. Yeah, I think we want to go to Vectia and then Abumium. Vectia is really good because livestock, just like grain, also increases local population growth, though I admit it's not as much. But it's still population growth, and that's good. So, yes, I think we are going to start moving populace north. So let's go ahead and move Swabian to Matuska. Matuska's now got 10. I don't have any immediate plans for you to spread to your neighbours, so I think we're just going to go ahead and send 2 of your people north to Sidaris. No, we don't have the civic power required, so we'll just need to wait for the civic power to tech up. The other thing we can notice is here it shows the population growth of the various different pops. There is only one pop that grows at a time. We are getting an Imeronic Freeman because the Imeronics are the most populous here. I think it is related to that. I think there's like a chance of either. I don't know how it chooses what kind of populace is growing. Like here it's only tribesmen, so it's gonna have to be a tribesman. And then if you hover over the bar itself, it will tell you the modifiers. Making myself cough and splutter there. Sorry about that. So because the population is already higher, the general population growth is lower. So there you go. However, because we have various things increasing it, for example, the Blessing of Tyus, which is our oratory power blessing, that does increase it. So, yay. Meanwhile, oratory power, that's the one we're waiting for. So let's go ahead and increase the speed to speed 4, just because we're letting time pass by while we're waiting for some of the diplomatic abilities to become available to us. Ooh. I just realised if we get Ambium, that's actually going to give us a border with Bastania. Although we have the alliance of Bastania, so that's not necessarily a bad thing. That just means that they can actually get to us in times of trouble. Also means that we can get to them in times of their trouble. And they're far more likely to get drawn into a war than we are. Has to be said. Because playing up here is dangerous. It's really dangerous. I should warn you right now about how dangerous that is. Like, all of these migratory mechanics, they're super cool. I like them. But you kind of have to do it early, otherwise you will get dragged into potentially catastrophic wars on a very regular basis. The barbarian tribes like fighting each other. It will happen a lot. So, move a populous person from you. Yes, we can. Move it to Sidaris, so we're now up to 8. We can move one more tribesman from here, I would say. Oh, and also in Bohemia. Hello. Open diplomacy. Improve opinion. Do you wish to improve the opinion of the Gallic local power of Bohemia? This will improve their opinion by 50% over time. Yes. I want to see if that's going to be enough for them to create an alliance with us. We're also starting to generate money, which is great. Our taxes are increasing income by 3.79. That's because of our tribesmen. In fact, did we even talk about what the tribesmen generate? I'm not sure we did. Well, tribesmen generate both base tax and manpower. So they are very, very productive. But like we saw earlier, if you're a civilized state, then your tribesmen are likely to be very, very unhappy and will cause a lot of problems, even if they are pretty productive. They don't produce as much money as a slave, and they don't produce as much manpower as a freeman, but they do produce both. So they are pretty good for that, and basically are going to be the very core of our economy, at least for the time being. So we want to attract as many tribesmen as we possibly can through migration and through colonization and the like. In fact, if we decided to migrate Agrum, we totally could. What's that cost again? Oh, we're not Swabian anymore. Sidaris prospers. The chiefs of Sidaris have sent an envoy proclaiming the harvest, trade and taxation have all produced a huge surplus this year. In a splendid show of national spirit, they've decided to offer the additional income to the state. Perhaps we should let them spend the money for their own uses, however. Donation is very much appreciated, so we would get 20 ducats, or let them use the money for their own needs. So Sidaris would actually get 2 population, which is great, because Sidaris is currently sitting at 8. You know what 8 plus 2 equals? 10. That's a colony right there. So we can go and start colonizing Vectia. No, we can't, because our dominant culture is not the right thing. So we are going to need to do some assimilation. Because currently we have 3 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7. I don't know, again, I don't know how dominant culture is calculated. I guess it's just a majority system. That's Swabian, that's Ironic. Oh, your happiness is on 0 because you're not of our culture. Also, our ruler's not very popular. Really? His popularity is 12. Crikey, that's bad. Alright, we need to do something to increase that. We also need to make sure we get these ideas unlocked at some point. I see that he's now doing cultural assimilation, which I think is actually reasonable. And if a governor changes their own policy, it doesn't cost you anything, it doesn't cost tyranny or anything like that. That's their decision. Oh yeah, we were going to see what their stat does for being the governor. I'm wondering if it like increases output or growth. Capital, base, civilization, migratory settlement, blessing, no effect there. Output, happiness, centralization, transfer of wealth, capital region, capital area, no effect on that. Manpower, increased by the bodyguard, nothing by the governor. Unrest is increased by the governor's corruption. And the fact that we're doing cultural assimilation. Research, no effect. No effect. I have no idea what the governor's stat actually does. And province loyalty. Unrest gives us a reduction. I don't know how unrest works yet either, except for the fact that big unrest is bad. But I haven't actually seen an uprising yet. Not a particularly serious one anyway. We should probably move away from Imeprator because it suffers some pretty horrific winters which get very expensive. Alright, so our money is now starting to tick up, so let's talk about buildings. There are only 4 buildings in Imperator, unlike the rather more varied building options in EU4. Buildings, I think, should be better considered as development. So there are 4 different buildings. You can build as many of them as you like in any order as you like, up to a limit, and that limit is your population. I think every 5 pops you get 1 building slot. And then the buildings are granaries, which will increase the local population growth by 0.06 each, and also slave happiness by 2.5% each. A fortress will give a fort level. Forts in this work if every fort level requires 5,000 men to siege down. And a province like Imeprator with a fort, a mountain pass with heavy winters, is going to be very, very painful to siege. Very painful. So Karak Imeprator is going to be very, very strong. Every training camp will increase local manpower by 10%. Then every marketplace will increase the local tax by 5%, commerce income by 5%, and then also the local civilization level by 1. Restoring the reputation. Agidag has come to us to ask for help in restoring his fame among his clan. It's unclear how he lost their approval in the first place, but we should be able to restore it if we set our resources aside to help him. Restoring his reputation would surely make him more loyal to us as well, but is his loyalty worth the political power he will obtain? So we can aid him. We lose 25 civic power, which we can afford to use. Agin loses the effect of disappointing leader, which is reducing his prominence. He gains prominence and he gains loyalty. Or we can say no. And he loses 20 loyalty, which brings him down to 46. 46 is very much danger zone, so we're going to aid him. The other thing which should be noted is if a general becomes too disloyal, then they will just stop obeying orders. They'll just do their own thing, they'll basically become autonomous. I don't know what the cutoff level for that is. I suspect it's probably around 50%, because at 36 they become disloyal and actually actively plot against you. But there is a level between that and I'm going to do everything you say, boss, where they stop doing everything you say, because you're not the boss of me. So we want to make sure we don't get that, because these guys are very important because they control our army. The other thing we can do, of course, is build our own army, and we should probably consider doing that. Although I think as a tribal you can kind of get away with doing that when war is actually declared, because armies are expensive. If we click on the build units, now one criticism I do have is in the recruit cohorts, so the macro builder, which EU4 players especially will be familiar with, lets you just build everything with a click in a location. Doesn't tell you the upkeep, like there's not enough stats there. But if you go to the build units, it will show you the upkeep cost of each unit. So building a single chariot unit will cost you 0.6 ducats a month. Our entire surplus is 3, so we could get like 5 maybe, and cost our entire monthly budget. So troops are expensive. Units like skirmishers, which are light infantry, are pretty cheap. Units like champions, which are heavy infantry, not so much. Elephants, 1.6. We could afford 2 elephants. No, we could afford 1 elephant, and that would be it. It should also be noted that different resources are required to build different units. So while we were up here, we had access to horses, for example. Now over here, we don't have horses anymore, which means that the building of heavy cavalry and horse archers and light cavalry all grayed out, because light cavalry and heavy cavalry require a source of horses. You can trade for them, which will give you a source. However, if you lose your source of a particular trade good, you will no longer be able to replenish units of that type. So even if we've built like 5,000 heavy cavalry, we lose 2,500 of them during a war and we lose our source of horses, tough, you're stuck with 2,500. There are various different goods required for them. So cavalry requires camels, heavy and light cavalry requires horses, champions require iron, horse archers require steppe horses, they are actually a different resource to regular horses, war elephants require elephants, and ships require wood, and also a port to actually build them. There was something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, the names of the different units are all flavoured. So slingers can also be called archers, chariots I think are always chariots, skirmishers are generally light infantry, and you can see there the overview, like what their generic name is. These are just what we happen to call them because we're tribesmen. Then like champions would be legionaries for Rome, for example. Okay, so we can afford an invention. We have got 107 civic power. We can spend 100 civic power to get an invention, so let's go through the options. We get herbalism, which is plus 5% text speed. We can get the Oath of Brotherhood, which will increase our army morale recovery by 2%. Omen power by plus 5%. Diplomatic reputation plus 1, so we're more likely to get alliances with that one. Fabricate claim cost reduced by 10%. Claims can be expensive. I've often seen them like 100 oratory plus. Improve opinion maximum, so again this is another way of getting our improve opinion ability to have like a higher threshold than just plus 50. Tribesman output plus 5%. We have a lot of tribesmen, so tribal reserve could be very good. National tax plus 5. We do make a lot of money out of taxes, particularly compared to commerce. National commerce plus 5%. Knew that one was coming. Plus 5% military tech investment, so we would get 5% in just martial advances rather than overall. Starting experience plus 5%, which effectively means we suffer 5% less damage in battles, so that is actually really good. And then plus 2% trireme discipline, which is discipline just for triremes. I think either tribal reserve or herbalism. We are generating almost no science at the moment because we have almost no citizens, and citizens are the only way of generating research points. It's actually complaining about the fact that we do that. 6.5 efficiency for research. Apparently you can get that up to 300. No idea how to do that. Like, that seems completely unobtainable at the moment. So herbalism would increase our already meager research very slightly, or we could focus on something else like the tribal reserve. I think I'm going to do that. Okay. Let's keep making money. Once we have 100 ducats, we can invest in a city building. I'm probably going to get a granary because we have got to get our population growing. You're once again taking attrition from normal winter. But our manpower is actually growing quite nicely. We'll actually be capping out fairly soon. Are we in the position where we can colonize yet? No. But we were actually going to go here, weren't we? Need to get our dominant culture switched. It just switched. Excellent. So what are we at? You are Swabian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it is, as long as you have more than a majority. So a majority, then it switches. So Vectis, let's colonize it. Let's move a Swabian tribesman. Over to that. Boom. Taken. And now we're spreading. So we have now got access to grain and livestock. So the Vistula is going to have a pretty rapid population growth, which is good. And then if we start actually importing slaves through warfare, then we can start getting surpluses of these and then start selling them in the capital, which will be even better. So the next target is to get Ambium, so that we can get that extra source of grain. And then we can, if we have two sources, so two provinces producing the same good in the same, sorry, two cities in the same province producing the same good, means that one of those is a surplus and you can sell that to the capital, so it also has a grain surplus, or grain import for the population growth. Good things will happen. Good things will definitely, probably happen. However, we're going to need to move this population to Vectia in order to get Ambium. Or we could, of course, use Oratory in order to just migrate. So I think Akram is migratable. I think I kind of regret settling you, and we should have gone for Ambium. So I'm going to do that. We're going to jump up. We're going to lose access to our wood supply. Who cares? It's wood. We don't build ships. And then the migrants are going to go to Ambium. And you guys are going to go and settle in Sidris. Oh, you have a provincial capital as well as a capital. Okay, interesting. Wait, did I move both armies here? No. Well, yes, but no. And the other cool thing about this is we got extra population for settling Akram. And Akram is now completely empty, so it will start to repopulate again over time. Recovering province plus 0.5, so it actually grows pretty quickly. So doing this migration thing and just absorbing population is a pretty good move. Although it is obviously expensive in oratory. But if you're not doing a lot of diplomacy, you probably don't need a huge amount of oratory. Okay, so we can just go ahead and settle here. Boom. And now our population has grown up to 8. So we're actually very close to being able to afford a colony here as well. So maybe we want to move some of the population from Acris to Ambium. So let's move the Swabium to Ambium. And we need one more. What culture are most of you? I'd say you're probably going to be dominant Swabian. So let's go ahead and move one more. We don't have the civic for it, so we'll need to wait for that. That's fine. Meanwhile, Bohemia. Our bodyguard, Mulligan Dagaricus, has asked for more funds for his office. With a larger fund, he would be able to do a better job for the nation. As one of the key players in the internal politics of the nation, we should seriously consider his value besides the office, as helping him out would surely secure his loyalty. Some of the treasury should be set aside for this endeavour, so we lose 21 ducats. He becomes an improved bodyguard, which actually increases his martial by +2, which is pretty good, because the bodyguard increases manpower recovery, right? Yeah, it does. And we'll also increase his loyalty by 10, so we'll get him up to an 86, which is great. We could spend military power instead of money for the same effect, or we can say no, which will actually lose a bunch of loyalty. I'm going to say we'll find a way to help him, because we haven't been using much military power at all, hence we're kind of collecting it. Although, there is a very important use of military, so this is something we haven't talked about yet. Instead of having idea groups in the EU sense of the word, you now have traditions, and you go through these in one of the 3 columns. So if you start this column, you can go down it, you start this one, you can go down it, and you can switch between them. But it's always like one, and then the next, and then the next, and then the next, from a top to bottom level. So at the very start, we could spend 800 military power in order to get Strike from Afar, which will increase the archers' offense by 15%. That's all of our archers will improve by 15%. Light infantry morale, plus 10%. Or chariot offense, plus 15%. I do quite like this system. My complaint is there aren't very many economic choices. By many, I mean basically none. Confederation is national manpower, chariot planes combat bonus, light infantry planes combat bonus. So if we're out in the open, like in the Netherlands, this would be a really good choice. We can raise levies. Apparently, with that one. Don't know what that does. Sounds cool. Wrong culture happiness plus 10%. So cultures not of ours would be more happy. And we also recruit cohorts 25% faster. Heavy infantry offense plus 15%. Considering we're next door to iron, increasing our heavy infantry bonus would be really nice, but it does require us to get all the way down to here. Siege ability plus 10%, and then morale of armies plus 10%. I mean, that's pretty solid. Light infantry morale from this column leads to chariot cost and light cavalry cost. So had we stayed in Germany, then this would probably be a good option, because it would allow us to use more light cavalry. Enslavement efficiency, that means the number of people you take as slaves when you conquer a province, I believe, and national slave output plus 10%. Hit and run tactics. Another tactic, that's a very Crusader Kings ability, and even Hearts of Iron. Archers, forest combat ability plus 15, light infantry forest combat. So if you're in the forest, your archers and your light infantry will fight better. Ugh, sounds horrible. Heavy infantry defense plus 15%, better. Light infantry cost minus 15%, archer defense plus 15, and then light infantry discipline plus 10. So this is like very light, fast moving, while this is heavier stuff, with also some siege abilities, which are quite nice. Chariot offense. So if we were like the British, we'd probably go down this line, because they can get a lot of chariots, plus 15% from that. Light infantry defense plus 15. Army weight minus 15, so supply, less of a problem, less attrition. Manpower recovery plus 5. Chariot morale plus 10. Light cavalry cost minus 15. Archer morale plus 10. Chariot discipline plus 10. And light cavalry plus 10. Loads of chariot abilities from that side. Alright, Bastania is inviting us to a defensive league. I'm going to say absolutely. So who's in the defensive league with you? Simonia and me. Okay, so we are now friends with you. And you. Oh, two of the big boys. Oh, I'm pretty happy with that. Good choices. Good choices. And now, because we're connected to Bastania, we're basically tapped into all of the diplomacy from all of that. Which should also open up a lot more trade options. I think there's basic... Oh no, yeah, we could trade. If we had an extra slot, then places would become available. What are we trading for at the moment? Currently getting leather. Well, if I cancel that, because I think we can always get it back again. We can get grain, we can get wine, we can get leather. I think I'd like to import grain, to be quite honest, from Lugia. Let's do it. And now we're getting grain in our capital, which is fantastic, because it means we get the extra population growth. And we're actually getting another citizen, which is great, because that's going to increase our research output too. Cool. Happy with that. Do we have any other citizens? We're just the one. Just the one. That's fine. So we have grain and livestock here, and then grain and gold down here. Good combo. Very good combo. Happy with that. Anyway, looking at my timer, that is the end of this episode. So thank you very much for watching. I do hope you're enjoying this so far. If you are, be sure to hit the subscribe button so you get notifications when I post more videos in the future. If you want to see this stuff being done live, I will be starting that from tomorrow. That is the 19th of April. At twitch.tv/Mordred Viking. Plus I do loads of streams. Like, I am primarily a streamer nowadays. So if you want to catch me live, then that is the place to do it. If you want to support the channel in other ways, check out the Patreon, which you can find linked in the description below. There you will also find a link to my Discord if you want to come and hang out with the rest of the community. If you have any tips or advice, or you want me to answer any questions or anything like that, let me know in the comments, and I'll do my best to respond to them. Though, again, I think the best place to do that is actually on Twitch, because then I can react live, and, like, immediately. That's it from me. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Goodbye.